Today I'm reviewing the Kiwi Ears Astral IEMs. These are 7 driver IEM. We've got 1 dynamic driver and 6 balanced armatures. Let's get it. What's cracking, audio fans? It's David here from Prime Audio Reviews. Inside the box you get the usual things like the IEMs, which I'll put here, and your cable, which I'll talk about in a second, and a carrying case, pretty standard stuff, and only 3 measly pairs of silicone ear tips. That's a bit slack. This, by the way, this IEM, let's have a look at it. This IEM comes in at a price of $299 US. So they ain't cheap. They do look pretty nice. 3D printed resin shells, of course, and you can see the faceplates there. I've got this sort of speckled abalone or crushed opal effect going on. They look really nice. Available in 2 colors, either the blue or the gold, and pretty standard in terms of shape and size. Reasonably comfortable, very comfortable, but they are a little bit bulky. They're kind of wide. They stick out from your ears a bit. But anyway, they look like that. They look great. So yeah, 7 drivers per side, 1 dynamic, 6 balanced armatures. And let's have a quick look at the cable. There it is there. It is a nice cable. It's a modular cable too. It comes with 2 terminations, this 4.4mm balanced, along with a 3.5mm single-ended. And yeah, just like that. It's not bad. Anyway, let's talk about the sound. Let's get into it. So the Astral here has... Oh, by the way, it's fairly easy to drive. They're reasonably easy. It's got an impedance of 23 ohms and a fairly high sensitivity of 105 dB. So you can plug it into almost pretty much any audio source and it will work. It will be loud enough, all that sort of stuff. So the Astral has a U-shaped sound signature. It has a largely uncolored sound, and it's a slight variation on the new Meta tuning. But what sets this one apart is a slightly less robust lower mid-range. It is not an IEM that chases warmth or sparkle, but it goes for pretty much neutrality, putting a strong emphasis on clarity and articulation. This is particularly well suited for vocal-centric music, especially female vocals. Let's throw up the graph there, and there it is. You can see it. So obviously there is an elevated sub-bass, and if you don't know how to read graphs, that means the part on the left side of the graph, the mid-range is in the middle, the treble is on the right. So yeah, you've got an elevated sub-bass with a pretty significantly scooped out mid bass. We've got that enhanced sub bass shelf and the scooped out mid bass. Now, despite that lift, pretty significant looking lift in the sub bass, the sub bass notes don't carry all that much authority. The Astral has a fairly light and controlled rumble. It doesn't offer much in the way of sort of visceral or physical impact. It does allow plenty of space for the mid range to shine through, which is why people are loving it, I guess. The mid-bass, as you would expect, is attenuated, or it's muted somewhat, which leaves male vocals very articulate, but ultimately lacking slightly in power and richness. They don't sound overly thin, but they could just use a touch more richness for naturalness and body. But let's talk about the mid-range a bit more. The mids are spacious and airy, and that's a result of that attenuated upper bass and the well-extended treble. Vocals and instruments are reasonably forward in the mix here, making them nice and clear, and they're easy to distinguish. The Astral is great for listening, like I said, great for vocals. It portrays them with plenty of clarity and lots of nuance, but as I said, they could use a touch more warmth or body. There is a subtle dip in the lower mids, and that contributes to that sense of spaciousness you get in the mid-range, giving the vocals and instruments a slightly lighter and more analytical tone. Well, analytical is not really the right word. I would say a neutral tone, but it's not clinically dry or anything. But at the same time, a rise in the upper mids at around 2 kHz brings that presence region forward, adds a bit of separation. It makes those vocals pop out and easy to follow, but without them sounding sharp or shouty. And then there is the treble, and I really like the treble tuning on the Astral here. It has a light and airy character. It's got very impressive extension. It brings clarity to the overall presentation, and it adds a nice crisp snap to percussion instruments. It's a clever tuning. The main treble region is nice and smooth. It's fairly restrained, but it's crisp and clear, but it avoids harshness, fatigue. It's not sibilant in any way, to my ears at least. There is a lift in the uppermost frequencies, like around maybe 13 to 15 kilohertz. It does lift up again, which is where you get that extension from. That adds a little bit of sparkle, but plenty of air without tipping over into sharpness or brittleness. So I like what they've done here. You've got nice treble extension, nice and airy, but it doesn't compromise the timbre of the treble. All right, then finally for soundstage and technicalities, pretty serious technical chops when it comes to technicalities, especially regarding the soundstage and the imaging and the resolution. There is a real sense of space and air around instruments, pretty pinpoint imaging that makes positioning effortless, so you know exactly where things are positioned within the perceived soundstage. And the Astral also pulls ahead in resolution thanks to those 6 BA drivers and that one dynamic driver, so it's good at capturing low level detail without sounding clinical. The soundstage is nice and wide. It projects sounds just beyond the sort of edge of your ears, while at the same time maintaining good note density. All right, time for a couple of comparisons, starting with Kiwi Ears' own Septet. Now, the Septet here is a quad-brid IEM. It has one dynamic driver, 4 balanced armatures, 1 planar driver, and 1 piezoelectric. So yeah, a real interesting driver setup there. These do require a beefy audio source, so that it needs a lot of power to perform. It comes in at a price of $269, so it's just a bit cheaper than the Astral here. And in addition, the Septet has all metal shells, whereas the Astral is resin. Now, the Septet has more bass and more lower mid-range presence, but you will need a powerful source to sort of bring that bass to life. And the mid-range feels more spacious, even more spacious on the Septet, thanks to its sort of open back design and a bit of added upper treble regency. Not the ultra highs, but the sort of just general upper treble. But it lacks the note density and the sort of vivid portrayal as that the Astral has. So it's a little bit more diffuse sounding. The Septet has a more expansive stage, sharper detail retrieval as well, but the Astral comes across as being more grounded, a bit more tonally contrasted, much easier to drive. I find it more engaging, more natural. So for me, the extra $20 or $30, whatever it is, for the Astral is worth it over the Septet to my ears. Next we'll do the Ziggart Arcanus. So these are both 3D printed resin shells. They are roughly the same, almost exactly the same. I wouldn't even be surprised if these came out of exactly the same factory. Now these two mirror each other very closely in the measurements. By the way, the Ziggart Arcanus, from memory, I think it is also a 7-driver unit, but this one has dual dynamic drivers and only 5 balanced armatures, but they are both 7-driver units. And the Arcanus is about $100 more than the Astral. So Arcanus is $399, whereas the Astral is $299. So they do graph quite similarly. The main difference in the frequency response is that the Kiwi Ears Astral has a slightly more lifted presence region. So vocals pop a little bit more. They have a bit better vocal clarity and articulation. And the treble extension is slightly better on the Astral as well. That does make the Arcanus a bit of a safer option for people who are worried or sensitive to treble, but I find the treble on the Astral here not fatiguing in the least. And I would say actually these two IEMs perform fairly similarly. I think the isobaric dual dynamic drivers in the Arcanus do give its bass a little bit more authority and punch, but in most regards they perform on a fairly similar level. Having said that, the Arcanus being $100 more, I would put my money on the Astral instead. Alright, so that is the Kiwi Ears Astral. Look, this is a good IEM. It's great, and in fact, I really enjoy it. Personally, for my own personal tastes and preferences, I would like a little bit more body and richness in the lower mid-range or the upper bass area. But that's just me, you know, I don't care as much about technical performance. Well, I do like detail retrieval, but I'm more about tonality and engagement as much as anything else. But I can definitely appreciate the technical performance of the Astral here. And although there's a bunch of competition in the 300 and under range, but I think these are a pretty good buy, pretty safe bet, especially if you're looking for something reasonably neutral with just a bit of added flavor. Anyway, I'm going to wrap it up there. Thanks for watching the video. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up, Pa Family Audiophile style. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button before you go. And until next time, I'll see you later.